This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
Hello, so this is the 1865 Group of Death, and containing Jeremy Davis, Rob Jones and Steve Burns. So we're recording the day after England's roller coaster opener against Croatia. We took the lead twice, we lost the lead twice, and then a half-time team talk seemed to have made all the difference. So describe last night in one word, Steve.
I'll go with optimistic.
Nice. Jeremy.
I'm going to say comfortable.
Ooh. And Rob.
Satisfying.
Nice. So these are the facts. England lined up in 4-2-3-1, the same lineup as the Costa Rica game. So Pickford, O'Reilly, Konsa, Stones and James, Rice, Anderson, Gordon, Bellingham and Madueke behind Harry Kane. Guess Stones and was the big thing, I guess. Bellingham for Rodgers, that wasn't really a surprise to me. How did you feel about the lineups? Anyone?
Well, my son came downstairs just before it started, about a quarter of an hour before the start, and was fuming about the defence, which, as it turned out, was very prescient of the lads. So, fair play. He did also make the comment during the match: you can take Southgate out the team, but you can't take the team out of, or something along those lines. Observing that the amount that they were passing the ball back to Pickford from attacking corner at one point, the ball wound up back at the feet of Pickford, and he pointed out that this is Southgate ball all over again. And of course, the second half they moved away from that. But I don't think there are any major surprises in there.
Yeah,
other than perhaps the exclusion of Gahey.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a tactical thing to say about the passing the ball back stuff, but that could come later. How did you feel about it, Rob? Stones, Gahey?
And it's tricky because John Stones has had a really good England career and has been at the heart of the defence for some of our glory years for England fans, really. I mean, since 1990, it's been hard. It's been hard watching England. And then the last 4 tournaments, we've just had real success. And Stones has been a big part of that. He looked his age last night and he looked like he's not played very much football. And I think if he's going to commit to Stones, I hope he just commits to him, because we know he's a Rolls Royce of a defender when he's fit and he's match fit. And so I think he can grow into this tournament and be so important. I think Gay's really unlucky. And I wonder, it's not the area of the pitch where you can just chop and change, though. I think we know that the partnership, the centre-backs need to be really important. And like you said, tactically, there was other things at play last night about why they decided to do things. And I thought, Jeremy, what you just said was interesting, because I think being an England fan is a lot like being fans of our club teams, isn't it? Where we have been burned by things in the past, which makes it hard to be fully on board with what's going on. Well, we know where this is going. And there were definitely points last night where it was we know where this is going. And I think that will take time to undo. I didn't have a problem. And the Madueke one, I think a lot of us, we'd read the last couple of days that Saka is kind of nursing something. So him being that game changer with half an hour to go actually could be a real secret weapon for England. And I love Saka at his best. And if that's us getting the best Saka, I think it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Just to pick up on Rob's point about since 1990, that would make it 36 years of hurt, or 13,149 days.
Here we go.
Theme.
My take on it was Stones was put in because we were expecting, or as you say, our history is against Croatia, we lose the ball And so Stones was put in because he would be more capable of keeping the ball than maybe Gay. Not that Gay can't pass, but that was Stones' game. What do you reckon to that, Steve?
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we were having some discussions on the group chat last night in terms of, without jumping too much into analysis of the game, how potentially flaky the back four looked. I mean, just going back to your initial comment about us playing a 4-2, so 4-2-3-1, I think it was probably a 4-1 with Kane actually back in front of the back four at times. And I found it quite a difficult opening few minutes of the game to watch. I'm so used to watching Premier League teams now where they all stay in a very, very similar shape and they all move together and the ball's kind of passed around. And this game was nothing like that at all. I think in the way that England were very fluid in the way that they moved with the ball. I think, like lots of us, I was surprised that Mark Gahey wasn't starting. And I'll admit I'm not that familiar with that back four in terms of players. So it came, I won't say it came as a surprise, but yeah, it wasn't what I expected from the back four. And particularly when, certainly in the first 5 minutes of the game, where they're passing the ball backwards and forwards, Croatia pressing extremely high, it made me very nervous, I think, for the first few minutes of the game.
Yeah, again, I'll talk about the high press. I also want to talk about Elliot Anderson because, as you said, Kane dropping into that defensive midfielder position is, I think that Elliot Anderson was possibly, apart from maybe Jude Bellingham, might have been the most important change that was made at half time. And I've not seen anyone else say that, so I'm probably just thinking that because I love Elliot Anderson. But so obviously got the penalty, definite penalty. Luka Modric didn't have the greatest game, showing his age maybe. And then when he did the stutter,
for a man his age, he did well getting his leg up that high. It's a bit as someone that's yeah, I felt his pain. Put it that way.
Yeah, Kane does the stutter, and then I thought the way he hit it was awful. Do you agree, Rob?
I don't like the stutter. Have you heard his justification after that? He knew the keeper was going to move, and I thought, hey, you're lucky you're good, Harry, because I don't think any of us believe that is a thing. Maybe the old school in me. I think you lose momentum. I don't really understand. I know they can hit the ball hard enough, but I think there's something about running up and notice the second penalty. He does that, and he looks like Harry Kane. It matched, I think, his nervousness first half as well. I think he was a little bit unsure, Kane. He definitely grew into the game, but it was almost trying too much. And I thought the Croatia keeper was great. And so, and you know, funny saying that, conceding 4 goals, and yet he came out of it looking really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy,
speaking of trying too hard, Guy Mowbray is a commentator that does get on my nerves a little bit, but he shouted "mind games" when the keeper went the wrong way for the retake and penalty, and I did think, well, he's just gone the other side, and it's not as Alex Ferguson versus Kevin Keegan, is it? It's the sophistication of the psychological. But anyway, that's just me. Yeah,
Harry Kane did say that it was basically mind games. And
did he?
Was like, yeah, he was like, yeah, I'll do this the first time and then do something different the second time to. However, as Forest fans, I always remember Lyle Taylor's penalties. Rob, you might be less familiar with them, but he had certainly until, I don't know, I've not really followed him since leaving us, but when he was with us, he had 100% penalty record in his entire career, and he used to just walk up to the ball, like not even stutter, just walk really slowly and then welly it in. And I just used to love watching him.
Yeah, I think I'm still from the old school. Stuart Pearce, hit it as hard as you can the direction you're facing and hope you hit the target.
And if you hit the keeper, he'll go in the net as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously conceded. Well, not immediately after. It's like 15 minutes after, but we looked pretty shaky at various points. And then it was Bachirina who pulled one in for probably 20, 25 yards. That's something I've noticed. There've been quite a lot of goals from distance. this World Cup so far. I don't know if that's because people are better at defending, or every year, every tournament, they say the ball flies differently. So maybe it's something to do with that.
I don't know if
but
defenders backing off more, because I noticed that certainly for the second Croatia goal, there was very little closing down around 25, 30 yards away from the goal. So that might have been a factor. But yeah, amazing given that Bellingham lost the ball in midfield, and it only took, as Brian Clough always said, it only takes a second to score a goal. It was so quick, the transition from losing the ball in midfield to conceding the goal.
And credit to the Croatia striker, it was really well hit. Obviously Pickford got a hand to it, but obviously with the power it had gone with, there was no way he was stopping that. So yeah, really good goal.
Yeah. Obviously we pulled it back with a set piece routine, a corner, Declan Rice taking it, and I saw like a tactical analysis breakdown kind of thing of it. So all the England players were blocking the Croatia first line, as it were. Then a second row of blockers come in, which is why Kane had all that space to get the free header in. Rob, that's just the Premier League nowadays, isn't it?
Well, it's the Arsenal blueprint, isn't it? It's a lot of Arsenal fans last night were sort of saying, "You're welcome," because I think the England management team have worked really hard. As soon as the FIFA rulebook came out about the change set pieces, they were straight on it, and they set up the friendly in Miami just to really work on that. And it's a really simple goal to look at, and like you said, there's a real tactical nuance. We know that Declan Rice can deliver a ball. I mean, he's not in the stratosphere of some of the world's best. I know he scored those 2 free kicks against Madrid a year and a bit ago, and now everyone's like, but he can deliver a ball. And Harry Kane is so accurate. But they were saying, actually, from the corner, everyone's going, how can you leave Harry Kane? And it's because he's not the biggest threat. Like John Stones is a big centre-back and constant, physically. O'Reilly, for this 18, 19-year-old, just gets his head on everything. He's scored for City in cup semis and finals. And so it's not surprising, because I think if it's not Kane, the next, Ghana are going to try and mark him if they can. And while they won't offer the same threat, you're suddenly going to have other players who are going to get free. And I'm happy if we can get 1 or 2 big chances, and we had another couple from corner second half. We can get another big chances every game from set pieces. That might be what wins us those really close games that have gone to penalties in the past, and the heartbreak of all those years.
Yeah, absolutely. At the beginning of the second half, which we'll obviously get to in a minute, there was that one where by O'Reilly which went just wide. And that was exactly the same thing, as everyone was doing the blocking thing, but this time O'Reilly peeled off at the far post, and which is what got him free.
And the interesting thing about that chance was that Kane was then being marked man for man. Yeah. So that had obviously left a bit of space for O'Reilly to pop up at the back. So they'd obviously changed the way they were thinking about marking. And, again, that's probably the tactics being worked out over several set pieces.
And then, of course, we threw it away. Just before the Croatia goal, I was like, what sort of shape was that? We were playing like 6 and then 3 in front, and it was really, really flat. And it was just asking for someone to just knock it over the top. And, of course, they did, and it was a very good finish at the end of it. There's Perisic, wasn't it, that controlled it and then put it into Musa's pass. How did you feel then, Jeremy?
Well, I do love a header like that. As someone that can't head the ball, or at least only straight up in the air, it reminded me, topically enough, of against Croatia and the Rooney header in 2004 across the goal for Scholes, which I thought at the time was the most, remarkable thing I'd ever seen, mainly because he was so young. But yeah, I love the Perisic header. I just thought it was so clever. And again, you just have to hold your hands up and say, nicely done. I did think they're leaving they're backing off an awful lot and leaving a heck of a lot of room. Maybe they're just inviting him to shoot. But yeah, that was noticeable. But it's such a clever header, and I do love watching goals like that. I did think You know, just before half time, conceding a clever free kick routine. Argentina 98. Wonder if someone's going to get red card second half, that kind of thing. But yeah, another reference for younger viewers. But I just thought fair play, really clever.
This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
So on ITV at halftime, the assistant coach, Anthony Barry, comes on and he has a bit of a rant saying basically it's just not been good enough. And then Jude Bellingham comes out and he goes, "What are you saying? I'm not good enough? Watch this." Which is absolutely fantastic psychology, isn't it, Steve?
I mean, it's in the pace that the England team came out in the second half, and that movement for that goal down the right wing was superb. I thought Bellingham showed pace, he showed strength, and an accurate finish into the bottom left-hand corner. So, yeah, you could say it's psychological genius from the team at half time, and motivational talks to end all motivational talks. But it was a really good goal, really well taken.
And Rob, I just love his celebration as well.
Well, I was stood next to someone who at half time was just the message was sub him off. He's rolling around too much. I mean, the England team in general were playing a little bit for the free kicks and not getting many of them. And I think there was a general consensus of just stand up. And I think one of the things, and it's not just Jude, but I think Declan Rice and you boys have watched Elliot Anderson more than I have. I've got high hopes for him because I thought all three of them are absolute monumental giants of football. Those three could run this World Cup. And I thought what you saw second half was the three of them just collectively go, we're better than them. And so Anderson's ball is fantastic into Bellingham's path. Madueke makes this run that just drags the centre-back because they notice he's quick. And Bellingham did what he does. I thought Rice got more involved second half. And I think all three of them seem to just go, okay, you've had your 45 minutes of nerves. I don't want to see that again. And I think that made all the difference. And Jude did exactly what, and actually, ironically, that was his worst shot. It kind of scuffed it. But we know they're the ones that throw a keeper off because Livakovic, again, had a really good game despite conceding the goals, and he'd made some good saves. And I think it just took him out a little bit with the bubble. But he scored. The celebration, I mean, that's what the Americans and all the other kind of nations that were there wanted. They were chanting him. And I think he's a big player. If he can play like he knows he is, I think it's only a good thing with the workers of Rice and Anderson with him.
Yeah, I think to some extent he's one of those players where maybe he will drift out sort of and you'll be screaming at him going, why isn't he doing more? And then he'll just make all the difference when it matters.
And if I can just come back to Guy Mowbray trying too hard, did anyone else notice the who else when Bellingham scored? Which, you couldn't be any more like flashing neon. I'm doing a clever callback here anyway. It's my thing. Yes, Accrington Stanley legend Anthony Barry. He actually had two spells at Accrington Stanley, so maybe he drinks a lot of milk. Who knows?
Another one for the youngsters.
Well, absolutely. I'm getting all the way back to 1966 if we keep going. But he actually he had a spell at Forest Green Rovers, didn't he? And they're the vegan club, so presumably milk wasn't on the menu. So who knows?
But Rob, you mentioned Croatia's keeper, Steve. He was pretty impressive for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, there was that spell, wasn't there? There's probably about 5 or 6 really outstanding shots, followed by 5 or 6 really outstanding saves. And that particular double save where he pushed it up high and then hit it, saved it again down low. You thought this was going to be one of those games really that England could have done with another goal just to kind of solidify things. But outstanding goalkeeping. And I think back to Rob's earlier point, conceding 4 and still coming off looking like a hero is quite a feat.
Yeah, I was sorry, Rob, to make it a Forest thing again. I was like, we need to get at least one more out of this little period of domination because they're going to come back into this.
Yeah.
And I always remember when we had Nuno in charge, we'd always start really well out of the blocks. and then we'd have the 20-minute dip where 20 to 30 minutes we would just be holding on. And I was like, yeah, so we're like 15 minutes into the second half now. We've completely battered them. We're going to have the dip any second now. And it did happen. Croatia sort of started to get a grip back on the game. But interestingly, after Modric came off, they started to but it felt a bit more nothingy at that point. It didn't feel like the danger from the first half, did it, Rob?
I think, hey, I mean, I could bring up Billy Davis, the king of kind of the 1-0, and how often second half would you be like, can we please get a second goal? Like Steve says, like just for comfort's sake. The other thing, because the keeper at the other end, Pickford, had picked the ball out of his net twice and had stood with it at his feet on the edge of the box. And the whole first half, that kind of drawing them in, I guess, to play around the press, and it just wasn't working. Second half made more sense. And I remember thinking, I just want him to make a save. I need Pickford to make a save because he's not actually made a save yet. And then that Croatia had a spell of maybe 2 or 3, cutting inside, hitting it. And he just got, at no point did he make a comfortable catch, but he was lots of punching it clear. And I think there was one, it was like a long distance shot and he kind of punches it out. And I could hear the groan of people around me going, oh no, he's going to spin it. But I thought Jordan Pickford does this thing where he pats the ball down and then catches it. He's almost that, because he doesn't catch it clean in case he spills it. And I thought, I'd much rather him not spill it in front of a Croatian team who've already shown twice they can react quickly. I thought the saves helped build the team a bit more confidence that we've actually got a good keeper. Because like you say, 2 good goals first half from them, but it just helped make that play a little bit more fluid. And it meant that towards the end, as the game started to stretch and Croatia looked a little bit more leggy, and our subs, particularly, I mean, I'm happy to keep it Forest theme. Djed Spence, I thought, was just electric when he came on. And again, the Forest fans I were like, that's the Djed from your Championship promotion season, because I thought that season he was unplayable, him and Brennan on the right. And I thought him coming on, I actually was like, if Reece James can't last sort of 90 minutes every match, I'm okay with Djed Spence playing, because I think he's a very big threat.
Yeah. Anyone else feel vaguely possessive over him? Because my son's a Tottenham fan, and he was going nuts when he came on, particularly when the 4th goal went in. And I was like, no, hang on, he's a Forest legend. You can't have him.
Yeah, I absolutely love Djed Spence. It also made me laugh when Tottenham were basically playing Brennan in front of Jedward, and I was like, that's our Championship right hand side now play. Also my Man United supporting friend has decided that he's going to go out and buy himself a chin strap to wear for the rest of the tournament.
Well, one of my kids was suggesting the same, because they'd actually quite like a beard and can't grow one, so they thought that would be the next best thing.
I was like, if he'd actually taken Morgan, then you could wear his mask and the chin strap. You'd look like you're wearing a gimp mask. Anyway, yeah. So Rob, you mentioned the subs. So yeah, they made a load of subs. Obviously, it wasn't as hot as it could have been, but you could see they were tiring. Some of our players were tiring. And yeah, Djed coming on, Saka coming on, and Morgan Rogers coming on. That was a bit weird, I thought, when he came on, having him and Bellingham on at the same time. But so Bellingham's kind of dropped a bit deeper, and I think Rice was supposedly injured or was limping or something like that. But and Rashford, of course, for Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon, I thought he did a lot of defensive work, but didn't show anything going forwards. So probably, yeah, like my wife was like, what's he done? And I was like, actually, he's done quite a lot, but just not what you'd expect him to do. And then Rashford coming on, and then that goal, the way they combined for that was absolutely outstanding, wasn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah, completely. Well, like I said, my son, the Tottenham fan, was going nuts about Djed Spence's part in it. And then was it Saka that kind of took over? It's just really nice to see Rashford with a smile on his face. Wasn't sure about the hair. Was that a new thing? My wife was commenting on it And I wasn't sure if I'd seen that before. I've seen a bit of him this season. Wasn't sure if the hair is a new thing, but it was just it was lovely to see him cutting inside and scoring a Marcus Rashford goal. Likewise, I think Anthony Gordon will probably get some criticism, probably unjustified, and I hope that we don't get calls for him to be dropped on the basis of one relatively quiet game. But it goes to show the strength and depth.
Absolutely. And Steve, obviously the finish by Rashford, he did that little step that took the defender out. But my actual favourite bit of it was there was a point when Saka was cutting in, and 9 times out of 10 for Arsenal, he had a shot and sort of curled it to the far post. But everyone was expecting that, and he just played it to Rashford instead. And I think that completely confused their keeper as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great pass, found him in loads of space, and obviously the cut in as well worked really well. I think for me, the thing that was refreshing was just seeing the strength and depth we had, though, players that could actually come on. I know we've been to other tournaments where you're absolutely convinced who the starting 11 is, and that taking off various players are going to make the team weaker. It feels to me like we've got something a lot more fluid with the range of people that we have in our team. The fact that we've got players like Ollie Watkins that didn't even get off the bench, and with the season he's had for Villa. So I was pleased with the substitutions as they came on. Obviously, there's a little bit of round pegs, square holes, but it seemed to work. And Rashford did well in terms of taking his goal. I think, does that now take him level with the most number of goals scored by an English player? Rob, I'm looking at you for stats here.
He's now, there's only 3 players that have scored more World Cup goals, which are obviously Kane, Hurst and Lineker.
That's quite incredible, isn't it, really?
Mm.
It's all right. So, so obviously that meant that the game finished 4-2.
This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
So I've already mentioned that I love the fact that Bellingham just seemed to be absolutely annoyed that his ability had been questioned at half-time and just went out and did it. I did think we needed to be more ruthless at some point, but I do think as well, this is my little bit about Elliot Anderson now. I think the key difference in the second half was that in the first half, he was playing very, very centrally, and he was dropping between the centre-backs every time England went forwards. And in the second half, he was playing much more like he plays for Forest, which is he was basically all over the pitch. He was, am I going to be needed? Can I make myself available? I'm going to be there. So you'd notice he was moving in next to the fullbacks. And then as the play went forwards, it meant that whoever had the ball on that wing or the other wing, they had options because they had Anderson sort of behind him. They had the winger, if it was the fullback with the ball, they had the winger inside or someone, Bellingham or whoever, sort of ahead of them. So they always had like 3 options available to him. And that's why we managed to keep the ball and move it at much faster pace. And that's exactly where Bellingham's goal came from, was because someone played it back to him. And then Anderson saw Bellingham's run and sort of put that ball forward, which is very, very familiar to us as Forest fans. So, Rob, Elliot Anderson, greatest player in that side.
Do you know what? I love him. And I think he's the conversations about like Gibbs White and his, whether he deserves to be there. It's a very nuanced conversation. And I would say I was very much like, I think Gibbs White was unlucky. I can kind of see what Tuchel wanted. I think Anderson is one of the first names on the team sheet. And I think you're right. It's similar to, we'll make it about American football rather than rugby. It's in America. when a receiver goes, they always have someone running with them, almost that physical. And the same with rugby, someone who's there just to kind of, you're not on your own. Football being obviously not allowed to have someone just go and run into them. Anderson almost plays that role, like you said. So the right wing Saka's got it. And I think in the 85th minute, Anderson was there because as soon as their defence got it, he was like, shoulder in, win the ball. That all action that I actually think first half, I think he was playing like the new kid. he was playing like I'm okay. My role is to sit here just in front of the back four and screen and I can do that. And then Rice was doing it as well, and it was like, and you talked about that fluidity. And it was the first half we saw it a little bit, but James and O'Reilly weren't really coming up. And second half, what was great was players were just running with abandon. So Elliot Anderson's on the right wing with Reece James, and O'Reilly's in centre in the 10 position. And I think they just freed up a little bit. I think whatever Tuchel said, it was to Jude, but it was also to Rice and to Anderson, which was go and play your game. Go and be this all-action midfielder. Because if there's one thing I think Anderson's shown this season, since he left Newcastle for Forest and got that starting position, was he's a little bit of everything. I know that Forest fans have said they wish he'd score more goals. I'm pretty sure he's got a mean shot on him, just the way he plays. I kind of think it wouldn't surprise me if he's playing against Panama that he gets a chance 30 yards out and he could pop it in. But his job is just to be that. You're going to hate to play against him. And if that allows our ball players to, Rodgers comes on and can play. I think Rodgers, we haven't seen anything that he can do yet. But yeah, I thought it was great.
Steve, just from a Forest point of view, my little take has always been he should have taken Morgan, but as cover for Declan Rice, not as a number 10, because when Rice went off, it did seem a bit like haphazard and shuffled together.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, when we got Morgan, he never stops running, and he will badger whatever player. And it's a similar kind of way to Anderson does. He just kind of chases people down all the time. So, yeah, I can see that perspective. But I think just going back to Anderson and pick up on Rob's comment, I agree. I think the first half, he was almost too measured. And we were sitting there waiting for him to absolutely clatter one of their players because that's what we're used to seeing. In kind of nipping at people's heels, and we definitely saw more of that in the second half. And I think there's probably another level to go. What I thought was interesting, and unless I missed this, there were no yellow cards in that game. There didn't seem to be many kind of bad tackles. A lot of it was a game of football that was played rather than a game of just kicking seven bells out of each other. And there was a couple of times I thought Anderson's going to take somebody out here, and he just kind of backed off a little bit. But whether we'll see more of that kind of combative nipping at ankles coming in later on in the competition, who knows? Because he can be a real menace.
And Jeremy, it's just a shame we're not going to be able to see him next season, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I was going to say kudos for the use of the present tense when you said how he plays and how he plays for Forest. I was thinking, yeah, kudos for the positivity. But yeah, it's well, who knows? Long as they reinvest the money wisely, which is never guaranteed, is it? But I think they track one. It's weird to see Danilo. It is the same one, right? Playing for Brazil.
They have two. They have an old one. He's the one who came on, and then our Danilo is Danilo Santos. Right,
I see. Okay, thanks. Well, anyway, yeah. It is a shame, and it is concerning looking ahead. But that's why we're all not thinking too far beyond the next game, to coin a cliche at the moment. Yeah.
But on my part, I'd just like to point out with Anderson and Forest, it's not optimism, it's denial. So that's where I am.
Rob, so how are you feeling about Ghana at the moment?
I mean, I feel like I've got to watch the second round of games still. Like it was nice, wasn't it? Like I think I said at half time when we were 2-2 yesterday, I was going, I've really liked this World Cup to this point. And I was like, and now we're back. I've watched a little bit of the highlights. I've not watched the highlights of much of Ghana, Panama, but it sounds like it was an even contest. And Panama, we obviously thrashed them 6-1 in 2018, and so I'm thinking, well, if Ghana are a similar level, we know a few of the players, Semenyo being the standout, but I think England have got to be professional these next two games, and I think Tuchel will demand that. I think we've seen that. He's not going to say you're allowed those 45 minutes like you did first half. You've got your sea legs now. Let's go. I'm expecting to see some rotation. Actually, I'm expecting to see some of those. not everyone, but just some of those players that we think should be kind of key players to get more game time. So I'd expect Gahey to probably play some. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a bit more of Djed Spence for one of the fullbacks, because I think he's kind of played himself into plans later on, particularly because we know O'Reilly's so young and James has got cheese strings for hamstrings a little bit. And I think as good as he is, there's always that worry. And also Rice came off a bit of a limp. He's okay. Kane took one to the baby makers right at the end. What a block. But I mean, like a lot of nations, it all rests on him. So I wouldn't be surprised. And actually, I want to see some of those players who are just on the edge, because if we do need them, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. And yourself, Steve? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, like I said, I think optimism. I go into all of these tournaments with a general level of pessimism of they're going to disappoint me again. And watching the way that England attacked yesterday, particularly in the second half, and that spell where they peppered the goals, it made me see something in terms of an attacking sense in the England squad that I've not seen for years, and it generally made me feel quite optimistic. I'm looking forward to watching, the second round of games. I think some interesting ties coming up, but yeah, looking forward to. I think we'll sweep past Ghana and sorry, I've forgotten the team. Panama, is it?
Panama.
Panama. So not too bad. But I mean, again, Croatia, they ranked 11th in the world. So it's been the first good competitive test that England have had for a while, and they've come through it with flying colours. So let's see where we go from here.
I do have to say, at the Euros, the ones just gone, when Southgate was in charge, and we looked a bit not very fluid. I did think we're going to win that because we're just going to shit house our way all the way through, like Greece did many years before. But Jeremy, this one looks like it's going to be. It's got the potential to be a bit different, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I heard an interesting stat that teams that have won major competitions in the last 25 years rarely use more than the 14, 15 players. So just coming back to that rotation point, I'd like to see. The point the guy was making, it was on a rival podcast, shall we say, was that we tend to obsess over these fringe picks, as he put it, whereas in fact, it's really the first 11, 12, 13 players that are really key. But I'd like to see some rotation. I suppose the only question is whether you lose a bit of fluidity by doing that. But I think, as you say, Tuchel is not likely to let that happen. And it'd be interesting to see what happens against Panama. They didn't look like the whipping boys against Ghana, so I'd be surprised to see England rack up 6 again. Although if we have as much luck as we had in that 2018 match, I don't know if you remember, the Harry Kane hat-trick, 2 penalties and a wicked deflection of some. No, it was off his own ass, wasn't it? It was somebody's shot that hit him on the backside. But yeah, I'm excited. It's not often that England win the opening game at a tournament. I think it's only the second time since I've been following football that's happened. It tends to be a draw. So I'm excited. I was listening to a US podcast, Pod Save the World, talking about how much they were loving seeing the color and the energy and the multicultural feast of fans from all over the world that were descending on. Were in the country, and it speaks to something much bigger than politics, and we should be celebrating the fact that there is this much diversity and so much celebration going on in the country, despite everything and all of the noise around it.
So we'll leave it there. I'll just leave you with the fact that as he's talking about the diversity and the celebration and the colour and the noise, apparently the England fans drank a Dallas pub dry and it was supposed to stay open until 2 a.m, but they had to shut it at 10 p.m. because everything was gone. So yeah, the Americans are getting to learn what we're all about. We'll leave it there. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Rob. And we'll be back in a couple of days. Goodbye.